Why rope, you might be asking? Great question. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the drawing here. I've titled loosely Coiled Rope. This idea came to mind probably a year before it was drawn. I had been drawing roots, which have been a form that I've come back to again and again over the last few years, but in a very deliberate way in the last 2 years. I was drawing roots in very sort of linear, tangled forms, and one day I was in my studio and I had just laid a piece of string down on tabletop, and I kind of came around and just saw it there. It was one of those like ray of light from the heavens on this piece of string, and I thought, oh, that would make a beautiful drawing, and it would be very hard. So I drew the piece of string. The piece of string is part of the exhibition, but as I was drawing the piece of string, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if I drew a much larger, like what if I drew rope? You know, a coil of rope. And I had seen, I'm obviously not the first to draw many of these things, and I'd seen a really beautiful painting of rope, and it was just rope coiled on the artist's studio floor. And I thought, you know, I'd really love to draw rope as a subject, as a motif. And it kind of came directly from this piece of string, and I thought, why not just blow it up, and that'll be great. The string was technically challenging, you know, because I wanted it to feel like string when you look at it and not look like I made reference to a string with a line. And I thought arrogantly that it was going to be the same way with rope. Rope is larger, and what I found as I was working on this drawing early on is that it was incredibly unforgiving. I wanted it to feel as though it was hanging, you know, from this point on a nail, or in this case, it's rope that I had in my garage, and I tied a piece of fishing line to the top, and I hung it from the ceiling in my studio in front of a white piece of paper to get the image that I wanted to get. So I wanted it to kind of have that sort of, I wanted that gravity to be conveyed through how it is looped and the shapes that are created in that way. And I found that you can't really fudge it too much, because the minute you do that, it feels like it's floating or it's oddly placed, and it just didn't seem right. So while it may not be immediately evident in the finished work, I reworked this a lot to make sure that those loops and coils, especially through here where they're overlapping, and up through here were just so that it is convincing, but it's convincing almost in details you don't look at. Like you just kind of buy it, and like you buy the way that it's there. And I wanted that, but that was really technically challenging. It was very difficult. And I like that. I kind of crave that when I go to make drawings. I tell my kids that I'm always drawing in hard mode. Like, nope, it's got to be hard mode or it's not worth doing. But there are some times when the sort of like technical challenge becomes almost overwhelming, and in this case, I feel like I was able to get across what I wanted to get across with the drawing, but it was much more challenging than I had initially thought.